Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls around the world, welcome to another exciting Coastal Spotlight, and the light is shining real bright tonight. Let me tell you why. We have a distinguished gentleman in our presence tonight, and you're going to be enthused, you're going to be inspired, and you're going to love this gentleman's story. Please let the world know who you are.
My name is James W. Crowell. I'm the president of the Biloxi Branch NAACP here in Biloxi. I was also state secretary for the NAACP and a former member of the National Board of Directors for the NAACP.
Wow. So you already know this is about to be a powerful interview. Okay, Mr. Crowell, you know, a lot of people know you, you know, from the MLK event.
Mm-hmm.
They see the great things you did with that through the years that it's been here. But a lot of people don't know your story, so we're gonna rewind time a little bit, okay? Okay, where you originally from?
Columbus, Mississippi.
Okay.
I was born in 1950 in Columbus, and I was raised there and finished high school at R.E. Hunt High School in Columbus, and attended Mississippi Industrial College in Holly Springs. We called it MI.
All right.
It was the only black-owned and operated four-year institution in Mississippi. And it was owned by the CME Church. Initially, CME was Colored Methodist Episcopal Church.
Whoa.
But then they changed it to Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. They had five universities.
Wow.
They still have four. Miles College in Birmingham, Payne College in Augusta, Georgia, Lane College in Jackson, Tennessee, and Texas College in Tyler, Texas.
Whoa.
So those four are still running. And you know, and one thing about those universities, they make it available for people who probably wouldn't have an opportunity to go to a university. These universities open their doors and let those people come in. And after 4 years of training and education, they do well. I mean, quite a few of them do well.
Absolutely. And that's just some history in the first opening statement, ladies and gentlemen. He just threw me when he said colored. So you had to individualize the colleges back when you was going to college.
Well, I had planned on going to Jackson State.
Okay.
My dad died when I was 15 years old. He was an auto mechanic, had his own business.
Right.
But when he died, my mom was a maid. She worked for Mississippi State College for Women. And so she wasn't making a whole lot of money.
Right.
So when I graduated from high school, I didn't have a whole lot money to take me to Jackson State.
Yeah.
And I got a call from home where they said, you got a scholarship to go to MI, a choral scholarship. You believe that? I was a good baritone. And I said, well, I was working in St. Louis at the time.
Okay.
And it was the summer of 71. I think I had 3 days to get from St. Louis down here to Keesler Air Force Base to work as a electronic instructor.
Right.
And it was an adventure because school started when I was getting trained at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I had never attended school at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
And that was a new adventure for me.
Yes, it was.
But I'm glad the adventure turned out to be great. I was able to progress through that. And when I retired as a GS-13. The first black in training out at Keesler to attain that grade of GS-13. And it lasted, after I retired, for about 10 or 15 years before they hired another black as a 13.
Wow. So coming up in Columbus, right? Back in your time, was it a lot of arrogance of, the other race towards y'all back in those days?
Well, those were segregated days.
Right.
We went to a segregated school.
Right.
We were all black.
Right.
I think the last 2 years of my education, my junior and senior year, They had freedom of choice. If you
Right.
wanted to go to the high school that was like 67 and 68, you could.
Okay.
But I chose to remain at R.E. Hunt High School and graduate
Right.
there. We rode on the back of the bus. We had a white and colored water fountain and J.C. Penney's and
Whoa.
other stores downtown.
Yeah.
We couldn't go to the parks and places that the white could go.
Right.
Primarily, I never forget, my father and I had a brother that was in the Navy.
Right.
In Charleston, South Carolina. He was stationed there. And he had a car. He was going overseas. So my dad and I had to go and pick up his car and bring it back home
Right.
and put it in storage till he got back. Well, when we was on the Trailway bus, okay,
Right.
we riding in the back
Whoa.
of the bus. It was a long trip. We got to St. Louis that morning for breakfast, and we went to the restaurant, and the white people went and sat up front where everybody sat at. We had to go in the kitchen.
Whoa.
And sat back there at a table in the kitchen.
Wow.
But I didn't mind it because we got fed real well. The cooks were black. and so they made sure we were full
Right.
when we left there. But that was just
That's awesome.
the way things were back then, you know.
Yeah.
And when you went to the places, a lot of places didn't have hotels for blacks.
Right.
So they stayed in people's homes.
Right.
I know when we had kids to come traveling from other cities to our city with Tri-Highway and Highway, a lot of those kids stayed in home. We had some that stayed in ours. They didn't have a hotel to stay in. And so it was pretty rough.
Yeah.
And plus, I did some work with Pepsi Cola, a bottling company, loading trucks
Right.
in the evening, you know, and I never will forget. A guy was driving a forklift, and he turned a case of bottles over, and they broke. And the owner, he was upset
Right.
because he had done that. So he called me. He said, "Come here, boy, and go over here and pick it up." I said, "I didn't turn him over. So why you want me to go pick him up?"
Right.
Well, you know, my job didn't last much longer after that. But that was the kind of person I was. You know,
Right.
I've always stood up for myself.
Absolutely.
Never backed up. I don't care who it was. I know at the age of 6, my sister was graduating from kindergarten at a church on the north side of town.
Right.
I lived on the south side of town.
Right.
So I told my dad and mom, I said, "Mom, I'm ready to go." They said, "Well, if you're ready to go, go ahead." So, man, I struck out. I was walking down the sidewalk, not really knowing how I was going to get home and get across this main drag, but just so happened the Lord sent out my pastor about there. And he saw me walking by myself, and he said, "Come here, boy, where you going?" I said, "I'm going home." He said, "Get in the car." And he drove me home, and then when my mom and dad came out, they thinking I'm outside somewhere.
Right.
And then they noticed they didn't see me. They got real nervous.
Right.
And when they found out that I was at the house, you know what I got? A good brushing.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And that never happened again.
Yes. Yeah. You definitely stand up for yourself. Where you get your strength from? Was it your mother, or your father, or your grandparents?
I think both. My dad, when he was working for a wholesale company, and he had to learn something about mechanics and stuff like that, and he wanted his own business.
Right.
And so he started a little mechanic shop over on the north side of town, little small place. And he was doing pretty good. He worked late at night. He would go at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning when get home to about 10, 11 o'clock at night. So we didn't have a lot of time with him because he was working, and he worked 6 days a week. So we didn't have a whole lot of time. My mom, she worked in white people's homes, cleaning their houses, washing their clothes. And but they had a desire to do better.
Right.
My dad joined the NAACP when it wasn't popular to be an NAACP member. Matter of fact, a lot of them could not tell the people they worked for that they were a member because they knew they would fire them.
Absolutely.
So that was one of the reasons why most of your leaders back in those days were either ministers, doctors, or lawyers. You know, because they had their own client. Their clientele was primarily black.
Right.
And so they weren't worried about being fired. So I noticed how my dad was and how he challenged things, and I said, well, that's what I want to be, and that's
Awesome.
why I've been that way all my life.
That is awesome. I see in the conversation you said we. So how many brothers and sisters did you have at that time?
I had 3 brothers and 1 sister.
Okay.
And the sister is the baby, so you know she's spoiled.
Yeah, she was very spoiled.
Yeah, I'm what they call the knee baby, you know.
Yeah.
The second one, you know, when the mom had the 2 kids like that, we were a year apart.
Yeah.
So she was down on the floor getting her food, and I was on the knee, sitting on the knee.
Yes, we always describe things in a unique way.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
So we knew a knee baby was next to the last.
Yeah, you already knew that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, leaving there, that part of Mississippi, and coming to start your new journey and job in Biloxi, what was it a cultural shock when you? Let me ask you this first: was that your first time coming to the coast?
First time.
First time.
First time.
Was it a culture shock for
The
you?
furthest south I had been was Hattiesburg.
Okay.
And that was only once. When I was in school, the choir came down to sing in Bassville, Mississippi at the Holly Springs CME Church.
Right.
And then we came down to Hattiesburg and we sung at St. James CME Church in Hattiesburg.
Okay.
So that was as far south as I had been. And so when I came to Biloxi, unlike one young man I heard say when he brought his girlfriend, he was driving down Highway 90 and he looked out there and saw all that water. He said, baby, you know what that is out there? He said, yeah. He said, no, I don't know what is it? He said, that's the Mississippi River. So I wasn't that naive. I knew that was the Gulf Coast.
How could he mess that up that bad?
He was trying to impress his girlfriend like he knew something. But yeah, it was the first time I had been to the coast. It was different. The coast was more open.
Right.
The clubs stayed open to 3 and 4 o'clock at night, you know, where at home we had the blue law. Everything closed down at 12.
Oh,
yeah.
12. Wow.
Beer and everything's taken off the table at 12 o'clock.
Wow.
If you didn't drink it all before then, it was gone. So when I came down here, and I was young. I was 21 years old. So of course I was a night rider. You know,
of course.
A partier, and so I enjoyed having the opportunity to go in the club and stay to 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. That was different. Going down on the beach was different. You know, they had several clubs down there that I would go to sometime. They had big shows down there at the shows. And so it was a new adventure.
Yes, it was.
It was a new adventure.
Yes, it was. So as soon as you got to Biloxi, you started working. Did you plant your flag then, or did you leave and come back?
Well, you know, I actually, when I came down, I didn't have a place to stay. I was thinking that Keesler would provide housing, you know, for us on Keesler. And when I went to civilian personnel office, they informed me that was not so. You know, they at one time back in the early 50s, they did allow the civilians to stay on campus when they were in training. But he said that's not so right now. You got to find your place. So he called Mr. Bellamy, Alexander Bellamy. He was a young black man who was there, and he knew people, and he also remembered that when he came down, he stayed with this lady when he was a student. That was maybe about 10 or 15 years. She had never had a boarder since he had left.
Wow.
So when I went and he called her and she said, yeah, I'm going to let him stay here, you know.
That's a blessing.
And that was definitely a blessing because I think I had $6 in my pocket when I came down, because my mama didn't have a lot of money.
Right.
So I came down on her prayer. You know, she asked the Lord to take care of her son. That's right. And he made a way for it. And the lady I stayed in, Miss Forrester, she believed in locking up her house. The gate was locked. She had a screen in front porch. It was locked. And the front door was locked. So and Jimmy Roy was a friend of mine. He worked out at Kesa, and I would catch a ride with him to work.
Okay.
So he would, when I get in the car, when I got ready to ride, he'd be cracking up laughing. He said, "Man, you had to come out of jail." He said, "You got too many. So you worse than the folks in prison. All them locks you come through." And as time went on, I said, I got to do better. I got to find where I got a little bit more freedom than I had there. So I went around to Miss Faulkner's house.
Okay.
She stayed on Main Street.
Okay.
And she had an apartment in her house where I had my own key, my own door, and I could leave and go. And I was right there on the main drag on Main Street.
Yes,
back in those days, that's where everybody was on the coast on Fridays and Saturday night. So I was having fun. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely. So you're 21 years old. Eventually found you somewhere you can have your own freedom. Learn where you at.
And I got a car.
And you got a car now.
And when I got a car now, I had to walk across the street and turn around and look at it and say, "That's my car." You know? So that was, and I could get around myself because I had to catch rides. Sometimes Mr. Roy wasn't going to work, and I had to either ride his bike to work or find someone else. So when I got my own car, I felt very independent then, and being able to get back and forth as to where I wanted to go.
So after the partying and you working your new job, you're in Biloxi, you meeting people. What was the first church you attended in Biloxi?
I attended St. Paul.
Okay.
United Methodist Church.
Right.
I went to St. Paul because their services was 1 hour.
Right.
11 to 12. When it hit 12 o'clock, that preacher was closing out, saying the benediction, and that was down my alley because I could get home and watch the football game, watch the kickoff, and that's why I went there. And I went there, and a lot of people thought, actually, I'm Baptist.
Okay.
And I went to a Baptist church in Columbus, but I was looking at more about time than I was looking at whether they were Baptist or Methodist. And later on, of course, my wife I had met in college.
Okay.
She had another year in college, so after her year in college, we got married.
Okay.
Now, the strange thing about that, when I got married, like I told you, I was wild when I got down here. And I spent all of my money going and clubbing every night.
Absolutely.
And when I realized I had to get married, I said, wow, I ain't got money to even rent a tux. So I had to go and borrow Mr. Rodman, Thomas Rodman.
Okay.
Worked out on base. And I had to borrow the money from him to get, he'll tell you right now, to get my tux. And so after I got married, my life changed a whole lot.
Yes.
I started to save.
Right.
I started to not going out as much at the nightclubs and stuff.
Right.
I still went out, but not as much as I did when I was young. And my training took over out of that. I had to do a lot more studying in terms of learning because I had no electronics. I was a math major in college.
Right.
So the electronic aspect of it was something new too.
Yeah.
So I had to learn that, and when I got there, I was the only black trainer there. All the other people were white.
Wow.
And I was a GS5 when I came in, and the guy told me at civilian personnel that the rest of the people that in the class would be GS7.
Whoa.
And the reason why they would be GS7 was because they would have had prior electronic training before they got here.
Okay.
Well, when they got in, I started asking myself, what was your major? And one said basket weaving. My eyes rolled, basket weaving. And I asked another, what's your major? PE. And it was everything but electronic related. So I went back to civilian personnel, and I told them, I thought you told me that these people were going to have prior training, and that's why they would be GS7. But if you don't like it, you can go.
Whoa.
You can tell you don't want the job, you can leave and go back home. Well, like I told you, I had $6 when I come now.
Yeah.
So I really needed the job.
Right.
And so I stayed with the job. And I was in class with other military students. they had a class of their own with the best instructors teaching them. So I told them, I kind of messed up a little bit when I first got here on my tests, and because I didn't have anybody to study with.
Right.
So I told her, I went to one of the black guys that was a 12 or 13, and I said, can y'all get me in the class with the other students? I said, and then I can study with them. You know, I think I'll do better. And they told me, well, I don't think you're going to be able to keep up. So I stayed in the classes with the students until I finished my training.
Right.
Now, when these individuals finished their training, they all quit.
Whoa.
And went somewhere else. So they paid them all that money and never got any use out of them for teaching class because they didn't like the job. But I stayed, and when I was a GS7, they came in and said, well, you guys y'all to be GS9 like the rest of the base is. And so they promoted everybody. I couldn't get promoted to 9 because I had just went from a 5 to a 7. And the Rule 6, you can only take 2 grades in 1 year.
Whoa.
So I had to wait to make GS7 another year, GS9 another year. And when I made GS9, it was, they didn't want to give it to me on my date that I actually started work. They delayed it a month, so I lost money. Because the guy said, well, we can't give it to you now. So I had a lot of hard time.
Yes, you did.
Out there with trying to get it. But yes, I persevered and I prayed and I asked God to help me through it. And he did. And like I say, eventually, I was the first black in training to be a GS13.
Wow.
Some of those same people that was telling me I wasn't going to make it. And I'm going to be honest, the people that stood up for me were some white folks.
Okay.
You know, it wasn't black people that said, but and it's good to have people who will stand up for you when they see that you're doing a good job.
That's right.
And I always, during the time I was teaching, I got an outstanding rating when they came in to inspect my classes and my team. They did well on tests, and people said, you know, they could hear me talk because I had a loud mouth. When I was teaching, I talked. They said, we could hear you teaching down in that class, you know. And I had a lot of students to come back and tell me, thank you for what you did. Because awesome. I was willing to give up. I was going to give up and let this electronics go, but you stuck with us and you made us learn and stick with it. And I want to thank you for it. Matter of fact, one young lady that wanted to quit ended up coming back as a trainer, as a writer, and an instructor. So she did real well.
Yes,
real well. And I enjoyed helping people.
Right.
That's why I'm an NAACP president. I enjoy helping people. I like when people are having a hard time and their rights are being violated. You know, I enjoy going in there fighting for them if I can. And doing whatever I can.
Right. So when was the first year you joined the NAACP?
I joined in 1975.
75.
Yeah. Okay. And I was just a member.
Right.
And later on I became a committee chairman of the Political Action Committee.
Okay.
And then I moved up to be the treasurer for the NAACP. We didn't have a whole lot of money, but I was the treasurer. And
somebody that can count to 10, really.
Right. So Dr. Mason had been president for 33 years.
Wow.
And he said it's time for me to step aside.
Right.
And he came to me and asked that would I take the presidency.
Oh, that's
so
powerful.
Basically, I didn't get elected. I got appointed.
You got appointed.
Yeah, and everybody else went along with it. You know, so for about 32 years now, I've been the president. And Biloxi is probably one of the only branches in Mississippi that's only had 2 presidents since it's been in existence. The Biloxi Branch was formed in 1960.
1960.
Of course, on the Wade-in issue they had, you know,
right.
Blacks couldn't go to the beaches here in Biloxi.
Right.
It was segregated. So Dr. Mason fought here, and some young children, because the adults couldn't go with him because they were working these jobs. They would be fired.
That's right.
So the youth branch, Dr. James Black, and some of the others who were young kids at that time, they went with Dr. Mason to the beach and went out there playing. Of course, they got arrested, and they were jailed, and some of them were beaten.
Yeah.
And from what I heard, because I wasn't living here at that time, that on that one night they had a Bloody Sunday, called it.
Bloody Sunday is worldwide. That's a worldwide event
Right.
that everybody know about.
Right. And I learned a lot from Dr. Mason. Dr. Mason was a very intelligent man. I went to his to his office, and he became my medical doctor. He was my doctor.
Right.
But the strange thing about his office, now we had Dr. Hunter in Columbus. We had a black dentist who was the president of the NAACP in Columbus.
Okay.
And Dr. Hunter was a medical doctor.
Right.
Well, when we went to their office, their patients were all black.
Right.
But when I went to Dr. Mason's office, he had black and white patients in there.
Whoa.
And then I'm looking around on the wall, and all I see is the NAACP stuff. I said, man, these white people coming up in here, he got all this NAACP. Well, the thing was, Dr. Mason was a good doctor. They wasn't caring what was on the wall.
Right.
They were caring about what kind of medical treatment they were getting.
Right.
And because of Dr. Mason's expertise in medicine, they were there.
Yes.
And not only was that, he was the first black doctor to become on the medical board at Howard Memorial Hospital back in those days. And he also became on the state board of medical licensure. So Dr. Mason, and I learned from him. I know when they went to the council form of government, they gave everybody beachfront ward to their wards except for Ward 2. Our ward line stopped at Howard Avenue.
Right.
So Dr. Mason said, well, if everybody else got beachfront, why we don't have no beachfront? They said, well, the reason why we didn't do that because there was more white people stayed going closer to the beach, and you would probably lose the majority black numbers because you want to get a black council person elected. So you want to be have more black people in your ward so you can get that black council. And so I listened to him. I said, that's right. I want to make sure they get the place. He said, well, I don't care. He said, I want some beachfront. So they went back and redo the line. Of course, it decreased a little bit, but it wasn't that much.
Okay.
And so I had to go back and apologize to Dr. Mason because I thought we were going to mess up.
Right.
But he stood up for the right thing. We were just like all the other wards, and we had the same number. So from that, I learned how to fight.
Yeah.
You got to step up sometimes.
Yes. Yeah.
And then I learned the other side that people are people.
That's right.
Because when I went to a black school, elementary, high school, and a black college, so I've always been around black people.
That's right.
So when I came down to Keesler, and it's an integrated society there, I had the fist up, black power,
Right.
And I was ready to fight, I thought the only thing that was right was black people.
Yeah.
But I found out that people are people.
People are people.
People are people. And when you find that out, you learn how to treat those that treat you right, you treat them right.
That's right.
And because of that, and that's what Dr. Mason did. He was the president of the NAACP, but he respected people regardless of what color they were.
That's right.
So I took over as the NAACP. Dr. Mason, of course, worked out of his office, and he sacrificed the money he made because when he left his office to go to conventions and stuff, his money coming in his house stopped.
Right.
Because if he's not waiting on patients, he's not getting paid.
He's not getting paid.
But he went. And a lot of times he took and paid his own money to go because we didn't have the money to send him with.
Right.
But we've been blessed
yes, you have.
to get one of the casinos here to give us a grant every year and help us. That helps us a lot with our rent and getting the equipment that we have. We probably maybe one of about 3 branches that have an office.
Right.
That they can go to. Dr. Mason worked out of his office, so matter of fact, one of his examining room became a place where he stored all his NAACP stuff, and he only had 1 examiner rather than 2. But when I took over, Jimmy Roy said, James, you got to find you an office. You can't have this stuff riding around in your car. You don't have a doctor's office like Dr. Mason, so we need to find you an office.
Okay.
So they got with Curtis Hayes,
Right.
who owned the building there on Main Street, and we came up with an office there. And Curtis spent a lot of his money putting carpet in it and fixing it up, so we have a place to stay.
Right.
And didn't charge us a liquor rent.
Yeah, these blessings are coming.
That was blessing.
Yeah.
We didn't have to pay rent. All we paid was a light bill and whatever other bill we need. But as far as rent, no, we didn't pay that until we moved to where we are now. Okay, we had to pay rent.
Well, that's a great story. That's a lot of history, a lot of knowledge on the NAACP and how Dr. Mason passed the torch to you, and you still carrying it, and it's still shining bright. The torch is shining bright. Now, a lot of people know about the coastwide MLK event. Now, it didn't start off as the coastwide MLK event, right?
Correct.
So, what was the birthplace of that?
Well, when they gave Dr. King a holiday,
Okay.
that was a struggle to get a holiday
Right.
for him. Matter of fact, I think Arizona was the last state to approve Dr. King's holiday. A lot of the people were so excited about having a holiday for Dr. King that quite a few people were having celebrations.
Right.
But what it did, it split people, going different ways. Sometimes there were businesses and organizations having a Dr. King on the same day.
Yeah.
So they came together and said, why not join together rather than having these individual celebrations? Let's do one big celebration.
Right.
So they got a committee of the ministers primarily and Dr. Mason and formed the MLK committee.
Right.
They elected Dr. Mason to be the chairperson for that committee. So it was not a part of the NAACP. It was a separate organization of its own.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't think that. They thought that the MLK, Dr. Mason was the chairman, that it was NAACP sponsored.
Absolutely.
But that wasn't true. So when I became president of the NAACP, and I was going to the MLK committee meetings, then they turned around and elected me as chairman of the MLK committee. So they were two separate groups.
Right. Absolutely.
And so, but a lot of people thought that it was NAACP sponsored.
For years.
For years, exactly. And as the time went on, of course, you had a division in it. And some of the groups went back and started their own celebration. And the crowd dropped. I think we used to have 5,000 to 6,000 people that would attend on that Sunday event.
Yeah.
So when the crowd went down, Bill Holmes, who was the executive director of the Coast Coliseum, he said, Mr. Crowell, you're paying a lot of money down here and you're not using the space. And plus they had started having a gun show on the same day we had him, which I didn't like.
Right.
We walking down, these folk with these guns, white people primarily.
Right.
And so he said, why don't you find something smaller to use? And that's when we went to Little Rock Missionary Baptist Church over in Gulfport. They invited us over there. And we went back and we separated the choirs because we had two choirs, the adult choir and the youth choir.
Right.
And singing at the program. And that made for a long day. It started like 2 o'clock and it'll be like 6:30, 7 o'clock before we got through.
Right.
I know one of my NAACP co-workers said a program ought to end the same day it starts, So we were going like to the next day with it. So we decided we would separate and have a gospel extravaganza just for the choir so they could sing. And we did that on Friday nights.
Right.
And then we would have a health fair on Saturday.
Right.
And then on Sunday we would have the coastwide program. And then of course we started having the parade on Monday because originally the parade was on Saturday.
Yeah, I remember that.
But it was much smaller, and we wanted to bring in the universities, the black universities.
Right.
And they were performing in Jackson at their MLK on Saturday. So they said they couldn't come on Saturday, but they could come on Mondays.
Right.
So we had to get Gulfport and Jimmy Jenkins to agree with moving theirs to Saturday, and we do Monday. So that's why we started having the parade and all that on a Monday.
On a Monday. Yes, yes.
And Alcorn was our first
I know.
university coming in with their band, and then of course we got Valley State, and then Jackson State. Jackson State is the hardest one to get. That we haven't had them in a couple of years.
Right.
But everybody looked toward the sonic boom. They want to hear the sonic
everybody
boom.
want the sonic boom. I remember Alcorn when y'all marched that loop by St. Paul Church.
That's it, exactly.
I was there.
That's exactly.
I was young, but I was there, and I remember seeing that famous college band out
that's
there.
Right. That's right.
I was there.
As a matter of fact, we set up a stand over there by the church.
That's right.
And we had a program right there.
Right there.
After the parade.
After the parade. I was there. I remember that as a young kid. I remember, what day was that we used to eat all that Popeye's chicken?
Now that was when they had St. Paul.
St. Paul.
United Methodist Church used to have their MLK. That's before they joined together.
Right.
They had their MLK at the Biloxi Community Center.
That's right.
And they had Popeyes. Yeah, we and we all would go over there and enjoy that Popeye's chicken.
You get to take a lot of it home.
That's right.
Yes, indeed, I remember that.
Exactly.
All of that came to where it's at now. I know it has to be documented as one of the biggest MLK events in the nation right now.
I think it was.
It was at one time.
At one time, but I don't think it is now because I know a lot of the other. I think Houston. I think they have a big celebration.
Okay.
But we have one of the better ones because we had some bands that from Louisiana and from Arkansas and other places who had been to Houston. Right. And they came to us one year and they said, man, this is much better. They enjoyed being in the Coliseum and performing or either out there at the Yankee Stadium where we first started out there. And, of course, we had to move once the Salvation Army bought that property.
Right, and, absolutely,
And then that's why we can't use it now. So this past year they used the Coliseum and had the actual parade out there and then did the Battle of the Bands out there.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have that celebration still going on year by year, no matter what y'all go through as an organization and a committee, y'all still get it together and make it happen.
Yeah, after a while, it's very rough on you when you chair a committee like that, especially at Christmas time, because MLK comes in January.
Yes.
So you're thinking about trying to get those bands, trying to get those buses. Right. Because it costs about $35,000 to get those bands and buses here for that parade. So you got to raise the money, and then you got to get them to agree to do and come on the buses. And so that's one of the things that made it hard. And so I couldn't enjoy the holidays because I was thinking about MLK.
Yes, and we glad that you still sticking in there.
Yeah.
We love to see your presence.
But we gave another person took over as chairman, Dr. Dixon.
Okay.
She took over after I gave it up. And then of course Alitra Perriman is the chairperson now.
Okay, that's great. I see you wearing your Greeks.
Yes, sir. They're the only fraternity in the world, Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, and we're the only fraternity that has a sister sorority. Yeah. The others they adopt theirs. They whatever's the big on their campus, the Deltas or the AKs, they adopt them. But we have a blue and white sister sorority that we actually founded.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes. Yeah. Sigma's founded at Howard University where Sigma was founded.
Right.
Our founders saw fit and thought that we needed to have a sorority, and so they helped those young ladies start the Zeta Phi Beta sorority there at Howard University. So that's how they end up being our sisters.
That's a lot of knowledge and information. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank Mr. James Crowell for enlightening us tonight. Sir, I want to thank you for coming. And, you know, we're going to have a part 2 to this interview. You know,
Okay.
he didn't even know it. I just had to throw it out there so he can get it in his mind, put it on his calendar, because this is a busy guy. Before we leave, who you want to, you know, they say in the hip hop world, give a shout out to, who you want to acknowledge? I'm going to say acknowledge before we go.
Well, first I want to give honor to God.
Yes, sir.
You know, who I believe in and trust in, and has led me as far as I've gone today. And next I would give honor to my wife.
Absolutely.
Because you sacrifice a lot of time away from home.
That's right.
From your wife and your kids. I had 3 boys, so
Right.
you know, they were out there and they did their thing, and she took care of them. You know, and she was there with them all the way through. So I thank for having a wife that's understanding.
That's right.
That I have to do this kind of work, and share it with me.
That's right.
And then of course those members of the NAACP branch right now, and the citizens of Biloxi, who have supported me over the last 33 years, because I was an outsider coming in here, you know, from Columbus.
Right.
And so anytime, you know, when you're outsider, people really kind of shun away from you, you know.
Yeah.
But I was thankful that we had some people who still believe in me. You know, with this incident that happened Monday with these young people who had that killing.
Yeah.
I've had several of those parents to call me looking for some help for their kids, you know.
Wow.
It's always, you know, people always come to the NAACP when they need help. But sometimes we can, sometimes we can't, you know.
Yeah. Before we leave, how can they join the NAACP?
They can call me at 228-326-7143.
Okay.
And I will get them an application. It's $30 per year for membership. And if you want to be a life member of the NAACP, you could pay $750, and you have 10 years to pay it. You pay $75 a year for 10 years, or you can pay it any way you want. You can pay it all at one time, or you can pay half one year, half the next year, however you want to pay it, and then you will be a life member of the NAACP. I tell people I'm a Diamond Life member. Okay. And a Diamond Life member is a third level of life membership. Okay. $750 is the Silver Life. $1,500. Then you have to pay another $1,500 to be a Gold Life member. Right. And to be a Diamond Life, you got to pay $2,500 more dollars. Right. And somebody said, well, why? If you got one life membership, why you get them other 2? Well, the thing is, if you believe in the organization, you got to support it. You got to support it. It's not gonna stay there if you don't support it. Give it some money to do it, and that's why I do it. I tell people, I said, when you go to the Saints game, and you spend $500-$600 going out of that game, $25 to park, you paying $10 to $15 for a beer and $10 for a hamburger. You don't be crying when you get that money, because you like what you're doing. You like what you're doing. Absolutely. And you spend your money. That's right. And I like what I'm doing with the NAACP. That's right. So I support it, and I want to make sure it's there for someone else when their time comes around. Absolutely. And if we don't support it, it goes away. You know, and I tell people, and it ain't gonna be there if we don't put money there to keep it going. That's right. So please support a positive organization, ladies and gentlemen. And get that number one more time, Mr. Crowell. It's 228-326-7143. That's my cell number, so you get me. My office number is 228-432-0206. Wow, that is wonderful. Part 1 of Mr. James Crowell interview here on Coastal Spotlight. And we want to thank you, Mr. James. Well, thank you. I appreciate you all invited. Yes, sir. Thank you for the history. Yes, sir. And I can't wait to part 2. Okay. Good night. All right, good night. I want to thank y'all once again for tuning in to Coastal Spotlight. You made it to the end of another episode. I appreciate that. And we appreciate that here at Coastal Spotlight. And we also want to thank the Sugar Factory inside Hard Rock, Biloxi. That's right, Sugar Factory have great food and fantastic drinks. In front of me, I have 2 of my favorite drinks, Sour Apple Lolly, Caramel Macchiato Martini.
You can only find these drinks at Sugar Factory. Thank you and good night.